Welcome back to Cable 10 Live. I'm your host, Nav Namwood. This is a very interactive show, so if you want to join on any of the conversations that we're having here tonight, give us a call. The number is 905-848-5483. You can also connect with us on social media. It's at Cable 10 Live. Use the hashtag Cable 10 Live and get your thoughts or your comments posted on today's show. On April 26th, the Mississauga South PC Youth Association will be hosting an event at Camlin Sports, and it'll be featuring PC leadership, Ontario PC leadership candidate Patrick Brown. And join me to talk about this event in more detail, but also as well as just youth issues in general. I have President of the Mississauga South PC Youth Association, Kyle Kuzinski. Kyle, thank you so much for joining us here on Cable 10 Live. Looking dapper, I must say.
You as well.
I feel underdressed, but. First off, just to get things started, tell us more about the Mississauga South PC Youth Association.
Sure. Thanks for having me. First off, just by way of background, each party in each riding is going to have representation through a riding association. They manage the business within the riding. So the Mississauga South PC Riding Association is the group that I'm a part of. And I manage the youth chapter. So in political terms, youth are anybody in between the ages of 14 and 28 years old.
Okay.
And our goal is to get youth engaged and hopefully youth to vote for the Ontario Progressive Conservative Party at the same time.
It's great that these youth chapters do exist across all parties, because I find that the youth vote is becoming more and more important, especially when you look at last year's provincial election as well as the upcoming federal election. It seems to be a lot of political leaders and political parties are doing their best to really reach out to the youth. From an advocate standpoint, what role does the PC Youth Association play?
At the same, I don't know if I agree that many of the parties do reach out to youth. And that's one of the big problems we've had in Canada and Ontario. And that's why voter turnout in 2011 for youth was only at 38%. Now, it's not a Mississauga problem. It's an Ontario, Canada, industrialized country problem. Youth, especially when we grow up in circumstances where we've had everything handed to us, we don't feel a need to vote in politics, right? But, a youth association, we're brand new. We just became a youth association February. However, we do plan on being very much involved, holding events, trying to convince youth that we do have a stake in politics, especially Ontario politics. As we've seen, our Ontario Liberals I think it's no secret, they've done a pretty bad job with our economy. Our deficit are barely shrinking. Our debt is consistently growing, and a new Moody's report suggested that the debt burden is going to fall on our youth for the next 15 to 20 years. With an aging population, healthcare costs rising, the Liberals have failed to find any real efficiency in healthcare, accumulating way more of our budget. It's going to be on us who are going to pay for that burden. So it's on our association and our party to really make sure youth realize that we have a stake. We need to go out and vote. We need to go and really vote for the party that's going to balance the budget, reduce the debt burden for us when we're paying our income taxes and managing the economy. We are the future, so we really need to get our leaders to support that and understand that.
I'm getting this sense that, and I think a lot of people will agree with me, is that the Ontario Conservatives are really in a rebuilding phase right now, considering last year's election results and just what's been taking place prior. And we're seeing quite the competitive race with Christine Elliott and Patrick Brown in regards to who will be the next Ontario PC leader. But how would you say throughout this rebuilding period, are associations like yourselves going to really push youth to get more involved? Because this is a great opportunity to get more youth involved and really speak to them during this rebuilding phase.
Yeah, well, the PC party, I like to say we're like the Toronto Maple Leafs.
I mean, be careful there.
I'm saying it's no secret. We've lost the last few elections. We keep shooting ourselves in the foot. And this isn't a secret. Both leadership candidates, Christine Elliott and Patrick Brown, have really emphasized this point. They understand we're in a big rebuilding phase, and that's, I haven't made my decision on who I'm going to vote for yet, but I think both of them are very strong. Patrick Brown is an outsider. He's not part of the main group of core that's lost every election, but Christine Elliott's also they're speaking in the same tone, basically. We need reform. And for a youth association, example, throwing events, our MSPCYA annual fun skate on April 26th at the Oakville Canland Ice Sports. We had Patrick Brown. We invited Christine Elliott. Unfortunately, she wasn't able to make it out, but Patrick Brown's going to be there. And Patrick Brown's going to be taking questions. He's going to be giving a speech. Every youth is going to have a chance to meet him, and we're going to see what his plan is to help youth. And I'm so glad that both leadership candidates actually have a positive youth campaigns, Youth for Christine, Youth for Patrick. And it's really increased youth turnout, at least in this, in a nomination, in a leadership race. This is unheard of, and I think there's a lot of youth really supporting.
Kyle, regarding both candidates, you touched on some of the differences that exist, whether it be from an experience standpoint or from an experience within the party. And one thing I have to ask you, what do you think are the key differences between Patrick Brown and Christine Elliott?
Patrick Brown is an outsider. He's a very young guy, practiced law for a year, was elected city councilor at 22 years old at my age. That's fantastic. He ran as a conservative in 2006, and he's held the Barrie seat since 2006. One of the downfalls for him is that he hasn't held a seat in cabinet or anything like that. He hasn't chaired a committee. However, I do like him. I think he's a very smart guy. I think if he wins the election, if he becomes leader, I think our party's going to be in great hands. Christine Elliott, on the other hand, she was a lawyer for much of her life. She is the widow of our former finance minister, Jim Flaherty, federal finance minister. And again, I do like her as well. She is part of the core. She's part of the core that keeps losing elections for us. But I sense something different coming from Christine. Just listening to her speak, she is totally great. I like the tone, and again, I think they're speaking in tandem with each other. Some of the differences, I think Patrick Brown is a little bit more vocal about the sex ed curriculum and certain issues. But again, no matter who wins, I think our party is going to be in great shape.
You mentioned both having a huge focus on the youth. What are some of the key issues that you're seeing that are affecting the youth, mainly here in Ontario?
Our debt. Our debt's huge. Our debt is huge. And they don't really have a plan to pay for it. They've taken money out of a reserve fund and called that an approach to really balancing our budget, and that's just foolishness. On top of that, our unemployment rate is so well above the national average, our youth unemployment rate. And there's a lot of issues for that, and it doesn't help when our Ontario Liberals make matters worse by this new cap and trade proposal, which is nothing but a greenwashed new tax.
But Kyle, would you say that no party really has a strong youth debt solution? Because I find that this has been a recurring problem. Even last year during the provincial election, it came up quite a bit. And for me, being someone who's unfortunately living with debt right now from school, I haven't seen anything that's really caught my eye.
Neither have I. Okay. And that's part of the rebuilding stage. One of the big issues coming from both leadership candidates is that they want to really, again, Patrick Brown's been saying the same thing, but Christine Elliott says, open up the big blue tent. Reach out to groups that haven't really voted for us in the past. Women, minority groups, youth. All these different demographics, and really be open to our policy proposals. They're going to put the members first. So when we come out as youth, there's tons of different issues. Youth may not vote, but we are totally interested in political issues. We might be dissuaded by the word politics, for example. But there's tons of issues, whether we want to freeze our fees when it comes to OSAP, whether, all my friends, we want to tear down the liquor board monopoly. We want to tear down the beer store monopoly. That's number one for us. Right? There's a ton of issues that we can be a part of, and I think there are PC parties really heading in that direction.
Flipping over to the federal side quickly, one thing I will say, Stephen Harper has done a good job in really capturing the ethnic vote, particularly with the Conservatives on the federal side, and really taking it away from the Liberals, which, at one point was very difficult. How do you feel like from an Ontario standpoint, whether the leadership's under Christine or Patrick, do you feel that ethnic vote can be utilized? Because, especially here within Peel, it's a huge ethnic population, and some of these individuals are very curious into seeing, how are these parties going to work for them?
That's a good point. There's a book written by Daryl Bricker and John Ibbotson. It's called The Big Shift. And it shows how exactly what you said, a lot of the minority groups, a lot of the new immigrants, traditionally liberal votes have now been moved to the Conservative Party of Canada. Great reasons. We have Jason Kenney. He's the Minister currently of Defense and of Multiculturalism. He has been the Prime Minister's point guy, getting out there and securing the multicultural vote. Specific policy proposals, such as tough on crime. That's a huge issue that many new immigrants totally love, that Conservative Party has captured. The economy being in great shape. Many people come from countries where there's corruption, where your leaders make billions of dollars when your people are left on the streets starving. Knowing that we have a good, strong economy, that the Prime Minister has taken us through the economic recession. great. You know, best in any G7, G8 country, G20 country for that matter. And you know, that's what we like. And for the Ontario PC Party, you're absolutely right. We haven't tapped into that. That vote still resides with the Liberals. And that's one of the benefits of Patrick Brown, is that he comes from the federal Conservatives.
You know,
and he knows.
Yeah, and exactly. And Kyle, you mentioned briefly that Patrick Brown is very vocal when it comes to the sex ed curriculum that the Liberals are posing moving forward, and it's caused quite the stir, I must say. Even on this show, when we did a segment on it, we had quite the feedback from viewers talking about, you know, their displeasurement of the curriculum, or if they were for the curriculum. What are your thoughts on the sex ed curriculum, and especially the fact that, you know, the Conservatives are outnumbered in this instance in regards to the Liberals really pushing this forward?
Yeah, I agree with you. Personally, for me, I don't have a problem with it. I think we totally needed an update to the curriculum, especially with the rise of cyberbullying, the internet. Most bullying happens on the internet. Sexual identity, people need to understand that there is such thing as different identities. When it comes to the years in which these are being implemented and the little amount of consultation they've had with parents, that's what people have had a problem with. And I think a lot of the Liberals and the media have done a great job in pushing that the PCs are dinosaurs, they're backwards, and that they don't agree with just the idea of homosexuality, for instance. I think a good vast majority of the PCs are just concerned about what we're teaching kids at a young age, about masturbation and about grade 3, or I could be wrong about the exact grade. That's what the concern is. The Liberals have said they've gone out and they've consulted, but one parent per school, I don't think that's enough, especially. So what I think the party is really pushing for is more consultation, and that's something that the Liberals have failed to do.
You know, Kyle, especially when we did the show a couple weeks ago on the topic, a lot of ethnic individuals stood up and were against the curriculum, and were feeling uncomfortable with their kids going through that within school. Do you think that's maybe a strategy that the Conservatives might want to put in play here in Ontario, is really attract the ethnics the ethnic individuals who are standing up to the sex ed curriculum and wanting change?
It could very well be. I'm not too sure. I actually haven't thought of that yet. There are a lot of people who do believe that, and I think a good chunk of Ontarians, once they actually read through the curriculum, they may think, sure, it's not as bad as many have suggested, but at the end of the day, some of these things they're being taught are just way too soon. And that's what I'm sure many parents, and if they are ethnic individuals, then I'm sure they're totally in line with the majority of Ontarians when it comes to this issue.
You know, being the president of the youth, or the PC Youth Association for Mississauga South, Kyle, I have to ask you, you know, what are the ways in which we can get youth more involved? You know, what are some of the strategies, especially since these youth groups exist? I think it's amazing, no matter what the party is, because this is like someone's in and just learning more about their community, learning more about politics, and really getting ingrained with what things stand for. So what are some of your opinions on youth issues?
You know, as I said before, I think youth are interested in politics and issues, they just don't like the word politics. So we're doing, there's many different ways. Social media is huge. But there's the argument that a lot of youth who are on social media and will follow politics on social media are already those interested in politics. So we need to tap into that demographic who really doesn't know, disinterested, whether it's through lack of civic duty, or lack of interest, or just total disengagement. They don't really care or know.
Do you think we need more youth candidates? Because we've seen, you know, across the board that when there's youth candidates that step up and decide to take action in their constituency, no matter what the party is, there's a lot of interest there, you know, especially from people who are not even eligible to vote, but just being able to influence their parents, per se.
Yeah, there could be. That's one thing. That's one thing that makes Patrick Brown very appealing. He's only 34, 35, 36 years old. And he's driving a lot of youth. I think he has a majority of the youth vote within the PC party. But amongst issues, I think we just got to get down to the issues and really convince them that, A, we do have a stake in politics. You know, this debt's not going away anytime soon unless I believe we elect a PC party, a PC government. And B, we need to show them it's not going to be that easy. The debt's really going to dissuade a lot of people because they either don't understand or don't care or don't really feel any tangible effects at the moment. So we need to go after issues that youth really care about. You know, for example, the beer store monopoly. That's something, you know, although 19 and above, obviously, but that's something youth and my friends and a lot of my friends in my association, my executive, they're really pushing for it.
Well, it's a good hook to get them in, you know, like you use that as the forefront and you ultimately educate them on other issues. And You know, I kind of just want to throw an idea out there, Kyle, and I want to get your opinion, being that, you know, we're close in age, is if a party was to go full force and focus on the youth, being that they are misrepresented and also that they are the voting population that isn't coming out, would that be wrong?
As a pragmatic strategy to win an election, probably not. Okay. You know, it's a double-edged sword. On one case, youth feel disengaged because politicians don't care about them.
Yeah.
And I found that from all parties. Although the federal Conservatives have released a ton of, you know, Futurepreneurs program where they've helped give funding to young entrepreneurs and different training programs. But in a large effect, they haven't.
Yeah.
But at the same time, why would a political party go after an age demographic that doesn't care about politics? They go after the people who vote. Yeah. So the onus is on us youth and our youth associations to really get youth out there, get youth interested, get youth engaged, and start voting.
So one thing I wanted to say, and you touched on this earlier, was the fact that, you know, in about 15 years, we're going to be, I say, the official adults, you could say, when it comes to living in Ontario or just living in Canada. How do you think, do you think it's needed now to get us engaged in politics at this age versus relying on our votes 15 years from now?
I think one of the issues is we're not really, so right now we don't vote. And as we're getting older, I think the trend is we're still not voting. So as we reach 26, 27, 28, closer to 30, we're still not voting. So that's a big issue that we really need to tackle. I think there's a lot of issues. We do have a stake, especially in the next federal election. We do have a big stake in the election. When it comes to, for example, as I just said, Futurepreneurs, this big tax credit that young entrepreneurs will get. Different issues when it comes to whether Justin Trudeau is big into this inclusive prosperity, which is just glorified Keynesianism in a different sense, especially in stimulus spending when we're already out of a recession. I mean, issues like that, we just really need to get people, youth or otherwise, young adults, to really just understand that we do have a stake. You can advocate for a bigger government that's likely to fail, or the way the federal Conservatives have done it and led us through economic recession 2011. Balance us properly, balance the budget, increase, you know, starting a balanced budget law that's really going to help us in years to come. And I think just getting people to understand those issues, that will totally increase their voter turnout.
So, you know, again, going back to the Mississauga South PC Youth Association, do you feel it's the onus is on your association to really educate the youth on these issues and to be a safe space to talk politics and allow people to get engaged with these issues? Yeah, 100%. We have a blog on our website, MSPCYA.wordpress.com. It's a full-out blog. Views represented there are not representative of the party necessarily. They're free for anybody who just wants to talk about an issue. For example, C-51, this new federal Conservative bill, there's a lot of backlash, there's a lot of myth versus reality that needs to be disentangled. I wrote a blog on there talking about it. And I think, you know, I invite people, no matter who you are, no matter if you are a Conservative, if you're a Liberal, if you're a diehard Socialist, NDPer, Green Party, it doesn't matter. You can come listen to us. Well, if you're a youth and you're interested in politics, that's phenomenal, and I hope we can have some sort of discussion. About educating, my association, we're debating the issue. We're hoping to get it done if the other parties are in agreement with us about going on a blitz. Going on a blitz to different community centers, different ethnic groups, high schools, and educate young people at a young age, because 14-year-olds, 15-year-olds now, they're going to be old enough in 2018 to vote. Yeah, exactly. So we need to, if not for the PC party, at least get them engaged to vote, at least get them interested. Kyle, we actually have about a minute left, but I do want to give you an opportunity to talk more about the event taking place on April 26th. For sure. So it's a skating event on April 26th at the Camland Ice Sports in Oakville. It's at 11:30 a.m. Again, we've invited Christine Elliott, but unfortunately she wasn't able to make it. But Patrick Brown will be there, and he will be taking questions. He'll be there skating. If you don't know how to skate, it's totally fine. At about 12:20, we'll be heading upstairs to the Arena Restaurant, where there'll be food and drinks. We'll be raffling off signed Wayne Gretzky and Jason Spezza memorabilia. Excellent. And yeah, we hope we see many of you there. Kyle, thank you so much for coming on Cable 10 Live. Best of luck with the event. We hope to have you on again soon. Thank you here on Rogers TV. And thank you for joining us. Before we leave you here on Cable 10 Live, we actually have a couple of news stories to show you from Peel Region, mainly Brampton, Mississauga, here on Rogers TV. We'll see you tomorrow.